Okay, let's talk a moment or two about what we call bankruptcy myths. Bankruptcy myths are called myths because they're just simply not true. As long as I've been practicing, and I've been practicing for 23 years, clients have always come in with some misconceived idea about what bankruptcy is or does or holds or what the law will require. And they come up with those ideas sometimes on their own, but many times they get those crazy ideas from their next door neighbors or from their relatives or friends who are well-meaning. They may even get those ideas from debt collectors that are filling their head full of nonsense. So it's real important that you ground your decisions that you make in your financial life on truths rather than myths. So we're going to just touch base on three little myths, and then you can read on about other myths that just things that aren't true. First of all, some people think if they file for bankruptcy, or have heard if they file for bankruptcy, their credit will be ruined for 10 years. And that just isn't the case. While it's true that if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the bankruptcy will be listed on your credit report for 10 years, that doesn't mean you're not going to be eligible for credit. In fact, it doesn't even mean that you won't be eligible for credit at market rates of interest. If you maintain your finances, pay your rent on time, pay bills on time for 2 years, somewhere between 2 and 4 years after you file your Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're going to have credit available to you, probably more credit than you can afford, but it will be available to you at market rates if you otherwise qualified. Another myth that I hear very frequently is if I file for bankruptcy, I'll lose all of my assets. And that's not the case. Most of your assets are going to be protected either by exemptions or the assets are secured by a creditor, like a car loan, where the trustee in bankruptcy isn't going to take that asset because they'd have to sell the car and give the proceeds out to your auto lender. Most of the clients that I file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy on lose very little, if any, property at all. And in Chapter 13, we're not losing any property. We've designed a Chapter 13 to make sure we protect and keep everything that we need. It's going to require that we commit future resources from income over the next 3 to 5 years. But that's a fair trade for keeping stuff that we want that isn't necessarily protected under the law. Now, sometimes another myth that comes up pretty frequently is that clients think that they will lose their house or their car if they file for bankruptcy. The reality is, if you're current on your home, if you're current on your car, you're not going to lose them. If you remain current on them after you file for bankruptcy, you're not going to lose them. If you're behind on your car or your house, we can file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And the truth of the matter is a Chapter 13 will allow us to cure those arrears and or pay for the vehicle in full through the Chapter 13. So it's not true that you will lose your house or your car. Few of my clients have ever lost their house and their car if they could afford them, first of all. And secondly, if they file the Chapter 13 to cure the arrears through the Chapter 13 plan. I could go on all for hours about myths in bankruptcy and things that you hear and that people have told you. Let me just stop you right now and say it's not necessarily a myth, but it's along the lines of things people will tell you that won't be good for you. And that is, under no circumstances should you go transferring assets away because you think you're doing the right thing. Don't transfer a car in payment for a debt or transfer a car for less than its fair market value thinking that you're protecting that car. You're not. Now, I know I've shifted to another topic here, but it's so important that when we get together that you've not already transferred assets away. I'll look forward to seeing you in our office where we can discuss your personal financial situation in much more detail, and I can answer whatever other questions you have relative to the bankruptcy myths you've heard and that you're concerned about. I'll see you in the office.